Okay, so there are a ton of players right now walking into week number 10 that we're not sure what their value is. We're unsure about some of their values. And other players, maybe some people are unsure, but we're looking at them as great buy candidates, or we're looking at them as potential concrete sell. I don't want anything to do with them. Some of you might have Bijan in this category. Some of you might have him here, and some of you might have him here. And the truth is, your vantage point means everything. Because if you don't have Bijan right now, he's probably a more attractive buy than you think. If you own him, you're absolutely in the unsure category at the very least, and a lot of you are jumping straight into the sell category. And it is what it is. And we're going to go through probably about 10 or 12 of the biggest names I could come up with that I felt like the consensus was worried about. And then we're going to throw them into each one of these buckets. The Fantasy Football Show, it begins right now.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show.
Kenneth Walker is a tough player to figure right now. Number one, he's on an offense that is struggling. Geno does not look good. And as I said about a month ago when I did create a video saying that I'm not selling Walker or running away from him by any means. I love Kenneth Walker, one of the bigger Kenneth Walker supporters you'll find. But if I could sell him for Eckler, and this is a week, 2 weeks before Eckler was coming back, I was exploring it. And the rationale would be that it's the touchdown volume that he's dependent on. If he doesn't get the touchdown volume, he becomes an uncertainty. He becomes a player that I don't know if the offense is going to be good enough, I think, to give him yardage all the time. He needs the touchdowns. If the touchdowns go away, his fantasy value could potentially go away. So, or at least be in flux, at least be inconsistent. And we're feeling like maybe that's what we're seeing right now. I think I would still buy him more than I would say he's an uncertainty for me. I would sell him in the most creative way. If there's a 2 for 2 and I could get into an Achane using Walker, and then in that maybe do some sort of lateral trade at wide receiver that I actually quietly like better. Maybe something, think Adam Thielen a week or two ago when people thought, he was going to, and he still could do well the remainder of the season, but Thielen's got much different value this week than he did last week. And if you were able to maybe trade Thielen in for Devontae Smith and get Achane for Walker, that's a creative 2 for 2 that I could potentially sell Walker off on. But in general, I'm certainly, if I own him, I'm unsure about him. But I'm going to, in general, in a vacuum, say he's more of a buy than he really is anything else. But that's because his owner's probably in sell mode. His owner's for sure in uncertainty mode, but his owner in a league where you don't own him is probably in sell mode. There's still a lot of concerns. You've got to have Charbonnet. I do believe Pete Carroll will figure things out to a degree, and so I'm going to say he is a buy, but with some definite worry. I definitely feel the same way about this guy right here, Tony Pollard. Very unsure. If you own him, you're uncertain. You don't know what's going on. You kind of want to sell him if you own him in a creative way, like I just mentioned. Maybe you could trade him into JT and you give up something, something smaller that you're not using. Maybe you have an extra tight end and Dalton Schultz popped off and you've got Kincaid, or you've got Andrews and Dalton Schultz, and you're like, hell, I'll throw in Dalton Schultz. That I could get behind in terms of selling. But I do believe that he, like Walker, is more of a buy than anything else. I'm definitely unsure if I own him, but I'm definitely not going to say, I don't know that this is going to turn around. And if you're wondering what player is going to pop into this box here, I'll ruin it for you in a second and just say that like Bijan Robinson is probably a guy that falls into the uncertainty bucket more than he falls into the buy bucket. We'll get to that in a minute. I just want you to understand up front that this is not a place where we're throwing everybody in the buy bucket that we're not selling. Kamara, I'm certainly buying him off of his mediocre game, right? But there are some volume concerns there. What does New Orleans look like week to week? This guy's been surviving off a lot of garbage PPR work, which is fine. And I think if the team struggles and continues to go that route, he'll continue to benefit from that. So we'll put him right here. There are some concerns about he's older. What if he starts breaking down? What if things start falling apart in massive fashion in New Orleans? But for the most part, he's a buy. Here's somebody I'm going to say sell in crafty fashion. And you know how much I love DeAndre Swift. He was a moon man, but the problem is he's not used to this heavy workload, and you're starting to see him kind of tail off a little bit. I'm a little worried he's going to either get hurt or he's going to continue to tail off and just be mediocre. So I'm definitely uncertain, but I'm probably more along the lines of finding the best way I can to get a creative sell package. Maybe Swift and a wide receiver like Tank Dell, who popped off, who I'm not saying get rid of, but for anything, but maybe you can upgrade him in massive fashion. Maybe you can trade across position and give up Swift in a tiny little piece to go get maybe a Cooper Kupp. That would be a player that I would be interested in. Lamar Jackson, definitely a concern right now, because I don't know, he could be so inconsistent. He could look great one moment. I would say I'm kind of unsure about him. I would buy him though, especially in situations where you need a quarterback, and the quarterback market very rarely offers up some good buy low top 6, top 5, top 7, top 4 to 7 quarterback opportunities. For the most part, he's more of a buy, but I'm definitely a little unsure of him right now. But we'll put him right here in the buy section. Same thing with Tua. I mean, is there some uncertainty about what's going on when they face tough defenses? Yeah, but I'm still buying him, especially in a market where quarterbacks are very hard to come by, and you can go get yourself a potential top 4 to 7 quarterback right now at a discount. I'm going to go do it. Puka. The only uncertainty we have is if Stafford goes down. If Stafford goes down, let me just pull Cooper Kupp over here too. If Stafford goes down, these guys vanish in terms of their consistency and having both of them be able to produce. They might rotate going forward if let's say Stafford goes down, and one of them could produce maybe pretty decent numbers on a weekly basis, but they vanish. They cease to exist as we know it if Stafford goes down. Stafford's struggling with the torn or the strained UCL, which goes from your thumb all the way down your arm. That's what Brock Purdy tore. That's what Josh Allen strained as well a little over a year ago, and he had to struggle through that. And I think with the bye week here in week number 10 for the Rams, Stafford will heal up as best he can, and he's only got a handful of weeks to go. So I think to assume that he's out for the year when he's not, and to start thinking of the negatives and the worst, look, sometimes you got to take a swing, and these two are very, very good buy lows right now for teams that are in need of doing something, making a splash, figuring out a way to move forward in a different fashion. What's going on your team isn't working. Time to go buy a couple. Maybe there's some risk, yeah, but high upside guys. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. Bank on Stafford staying healthy, coming back off the bye week, and it's a fun bet to make at this point. Jamar Chase, back injury in last night's game, but not concerned. And quite frankly, I think people freak out whenever he has a horrible game. And maybe the buy window is not huge, but I definitely would explore buying Jamar Chase on the low. Same thing with Adams. We expected Adams, or at least I did, to have a big week number 9 off the removal of the head coach, GM, and just motivation that was like just infectious in the locker room, and his attitude. Everybody was excited. This team won. O'Connell was an amazing throwing the football from a fantasy perspective, but he was a leader, didn't make mistakes. The team won. They're excited. I think we're just a week early on Devontae Adams popping back off. So I'm going to put Adams over in this corner right here. Adams is an absolute buy. As I warned you, Bijan, talent-wise, I want to say buy him on all levels, but the fact is we don't know what Arthur Smith is going to do. On a level, certain level, and in some capacity, I would say buy him. Okay, if you need a spark and his owner's selling him off, like his owner's like, I'm selling this guy, he's got him here, and you can get him in some creative package, I would definitely buy him if you need a shakeup. But I'm going to leave him here because I don't want to give off the impression that I feel like I know for a fact that Arthur Smith's going to change his ways. I don't know. I'm going to be hopeful that this turns into the Jahmyr Gibbs late breakout session, but we have no way of truly knowing. I would sell him in a creative way like Achane. I would get rid of him for Achane, who's going on a bye week and then comes back fully healthy. I'd get rid of him for Cooper Kupp. I'd get rid of him for a Pollard and Walker, and maybe straight up just to shake things up. And I guess I would say that if you have a lot of shares of them, then yeah, sell them for a Cooper Kupp, sell them for a Pollard, take a chance on a Walker, take a Debo and a Kyron Williams, take different combinations of players and diversify your portfolio a little bit if you've got a lot of Bijan shares across a lot of leagues. But he's definitely going to remain in the unsure category. Debo is said to be fully healthy. I'm going to put him over here by Debo Samuel right now, coming off the bye week. Travis Kelce, look, he's older. There's concern about drop-off at some point, but he's in the buy category, not in the sell category. That's kind of how I feel in a nutshell about all of these players right here, right now. Some of the biggest names in fantasy that a lot of you have questions about, as you should, and that's kind of my general thinking. And again, some of these guys are falling into multiple buckets, but for the most part, in a vacuum, this is where I'm going to throw them walking into week 10 on.
From the FantasyFootballShow.com studios, it's the Fantasy Football Show.